She thought he was just the IT guy and ordered him to fix the server. What she didn't know? He was the CEO, and he'd just found the woman who'd turn his world upside down. If this twist got your heart racing, imagine what comes next. Hit subscribe so you never miss a story like this. Leave a comment below. What would you do if you accidentally yelled at your future spouse? And don't forget to share this with someone who needs a little drama, romance, and redemption today. Emily Parker's very first day at Westwood Solutions was supposed to be smooth. Instead, the second she stepped into the open plan office, alarms might as well have gone off. Monitors froze. A printer spit out half pages. People darted between desks, clutching folders like life rafts. Phones rang so fast the sound blurred into one frantic tone. Someone shouted, "The whole system's down." Another cried out, "All the reports are gone." Emily tightened her grip on her bag, eyes wide. What on earth did I just walk into? She set her bag on the desk, grabbed the office phone, and dialed IT. Busy. She slammed the receiver down and tried again. Busy. Her heartbeat kicked up. "Where's the tech team?" she asked, spinning toward a group of panicked employees. No one answered. They were too busy yelling over each other. She turned, and that's when she saw him. A tall man in a dark, perfectly tailored suit stood by the far wall, arms folded, calmly watching the chaos. He didn't type. He didn't talk. He didn't even look stressed. He just observed, like he had all the time in the world. Emily didn't think. She marched straight over, heels clicking against the tile, adrenaline roaring. "Hey, you!" she barked, grabbing his sleeve. "Don't just stand there, move!" He raised one brow, still silent. Emily dragged him toward a desk, shoved a chair out. "Sit down, right here." She practically pushed him into the seat, pointing at the dead monitor. "Fix this, now!" He stared up at her, utterly unfazed. "What?" she snapped, leaning over the desk. "Are you just going to sit there? People are losing their minds, and you're watching like it's a movie? Type something." Still nothing. Just that cool, unreadable gaze. Emily's frustration boiled over. She slapped the keyboard. "Come on, this isn't rocket science. We don't have all day. Hurry up." A soft laugh escaped him, low and amused. Emily froze. "What's so funny?" He finally spoke, voice steady and calm. "You're giving me orders?" "Yes," she fired back instantly, eyes blazing. "Now fix it before this place goes up in flames." For a split second, he just looked at her, that faint smile tugging at his lips. The phones kept ringing. Someone in the background yelled about a client threatening to cancel, and Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. He leaned slightly closer to the keyboard, still smiling like he knew something she didn't. Ryan's fingers hovered over the keyboard as the office chaos roared around them. Emily stood over him, arms crossed, tapping her foot. "Well, are you going to fix it, or just sit there?" He finally moved, calmly pressing a few keys, pausing, then typing a few more. His movements were deliberate, almost slow on purpose, as if the crisis outside didn't exist. Emily leaned in closer, exasperated. "You're seriously going at grandma speed right now?" That quiet laugh again. He looked up at her, one eyebrow raised. "Do you really think I'm IT?" Emily blinked, caught off guard. "You're sitting at the computer, aren't you? Now stop talking and start fixing." Ryan didn't answer. He hit one final key. Suddenly, every monitor in the room flickered, then burst back to life with a rush of color and code. A wave of relief swept across the room. Someone shouted, "It's back!" Another cheered, "The reports are here!" The tension broke like glass shattering. Emily's jaw dropped. "Wait, that's it? You actually fixed it?" She bent down, scanning the screen as data flowed. "Okay, not bad. Took you long enough." Ryan pushed the chair back, standing up with a coolness that made her pause. He straightened his cuffs, his lips curving into the faintest smile. Emily opened her mouth to throw out another command. Then footsteps pounded down the hallway. A man in a gray suit burst through the door, slightly out of breath, his voice urgent. "Mr. Carter, the board meeting is ready. They're waiting upstairs." The words slammed into Emily's mind. Mr. Carter? Her stomach dropped. The man in front of her, this calm stranger she'd been bossing around, looked down at her, eyes glinting with amusement. That confident smile deepened. Emily's mouth went dry. "Wait, you're Ryan Carter?" He gave a small nod, adjusting the buttons on his jacket like he had all the time in the world. "That would be me." Emily felt every ounce of blood drain from her face. Her hands turned cold. Ryan Carter, the new CEO. The room seemed to tilt. She replayed every word she'd just barked at him, every sharp command, every insult. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Around them, whispers rippled through the office. Did she just yell at the CEO? Oh my God, that's him! Chairs squeaked as people turned to stare. Some eyes widened in disbelief. Others looked away, awkward, trying not to be caught watching. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her voice cracked as she tried to speak. I didn't know. I thought—" Her mind scrambled for anything that might undo what just happened. But there was nothing. Ryan folded his arms, head tilted slightly as he studied her with that infuriating calm. "You give orders very easily," he said, his tone teasing, but his eyes sharp. Emily swallowed hard. I didn't mean to. Interesting first day for you, isn't it?" His voice was low, measured, almost playful. But there was something else in his eyes, a spark of curiosity that made Emily's heart pound even harder. She wanted to sink into the floor. How am I still standing? Why didn't anyone tell me who he was? Her mind screamed every possible regret, every fear of what he might do next. Fire her? Humiliate her further? Ryan took a step back, his gaze never leaving hers. That faint smile never wavered as he turned to the man in the gray suit. "Let them know I'll be there in 5 minutes." "Yes, sir," the man replied, darting back out of the room. The office was dead silent now, every eye fixed on Emily and Ryan. Emily's fingers trembled as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She opened her mouth to apologize again, but no sound came out. Ryan leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping just enough that only she could hear. "Anything else you'd like me to fix, Miss Parker?" Emily's breath hitched. Her stomach twisted into knots. "What have I done?" Ryan straightened, calm as ever, and started toward the door, leaving Emily frozen in place, humiliated, confused, and suddenly very, very aware that she had just started a fire she had no idea how to put out. The boardroom was packed. Dark suits filled every chair, screens displayed financial charts, and yet all Emily could hear was the pounding of her own heartbeat. She slipped into the back row, hoping, praying, that she could disappear into the wallpaper. But Ryan Carter didn't let things slide. Halfway through the meeting, while presenting a slide about system stability, he suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His sharp gaze swept across the room until it locked on her. "Miss Parker," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "Stand up." Her stomach dropped. Emily froze for half a second before pushing herself up, knees wobbling. Every director in the room turned to look at her, curious and slightly amused. Ryan clasped his hands behind his back and tilted his head slightly, eyes glinting with something she couldn't read. "Would you kindly explain to the board," he said slowly, every word precise, "how you just instructed me, your CEO, to fix our entire server system this morning?" A wave of chuckles rippled around the table. Someone stifled a laugh behind a hand. Emily felt her face burn hot. "Oh no, 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 no." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. Then, forcing her voice to work, she stammered, I honestly thought you were it." The room erupted in soft laughter. A few directors shook their heads, grinning. The CFO muttered something under his breath that she couldn't catch, and Emily wanted to vanish. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides, nails digging into her palms. Ryan didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He simply watched her, eyes steady, like a hawk studying its prey. "You thought," he repeated, his voice calm but carrying across the room, "that the man in charge of this entire operation was here to fix a keyboard for you?" Emily's throat tightened. "Sir, That's enough." He raised a hand, and the laughter died instantly. The sudden silence was deafening. Emily's pulse thudded in her ears. Ryan leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on the edge of the table. "Miss Parker," he said again, his tone measured but cold enough to make her shiver. "After this meeting, my office. We need to talk." The words slammed into her like a punch. Her breath caught, and her legs almost gave out. Around the table, a few eyebrows shot up. One man coughed to hide a grin. Emily nodded quickly, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, sir." She dropped back into her chair, wishing it would swallow her whole. Every minute after that felt like a slow-motion nightmare. Ryan continued the meeting as if nothing had happened, his voice smooth, his points sharp. But Emily couldn't focus on a single word. Her mind spiraled with panic. "He's going to fire me. My first day, and I'm already done. What am I going to do?" Her hands shook as she gripped her notepad, pretending to jot down notes just to keep from falling apart. Every time Ryan's eyes flicked in her direction, her chest tightened. She caught snippets of conversation, revenues, projections, deadlines, but none of it mattered. When the meeting finally ended, chairs scraped back, papers shuffled, and executives filed out, whispering among themselves. Emily stayed frozen in her seat until the room was almost empty. Ryan closed his laptop with deliberate calm. He looked up and caught her staring. "Miss Parker," he said quietly, but the weight in his tone made her flinch. "Yes." "Mr. Carter?" Her voice was barely steady. He adjusted his cufflinks, stood, and smoothed his jacket. "My office," he repeated, eyes never leaving hers. "Now." The air seemed to leave the room. Emily's knees trembled as she stood, every step toward the door feeling heavier than the last. She could feel the eyes of the remaining staff following her, whispers buzzing just low enough that she couldn't make out the words. Her mind was racing. What's he going to say? What's he going to do? This is it. My career ends today. As Ryan pushed open the glass door to his office and motioned her inside, the tension was so thick it was hard to breathe. Emily stepped through, heart pounding, bracing herself for whatever storm was about to hit. Emily stepped into Ryan Carter's office, her palms damp, her heartbeat so loud it felt like it echoed against the sleek glass walls. The heavy door closed behind her with a soft click, but to her it sounded like a final judgment. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, but the room still felt cold, tense, like the air right before a storm. Ryan sat behind his massive desk, calm, collected, unreadable. He didn't speak at first. Instead, he let the silence stretch, flipping through a document as if she weren't even there. Emily stood stiffly, clutching her notepad against her chest, waiting for the blow she was sure was coming. Finally, he set the papers aside and looked up, his eyes locking onto hers with that piercing focus that made her stomach drop. "You," he began, his voice low and deliberate, "actually ordered me around, in my own company." Emily swallowed hard, her throat dry. "Mr. Carter, You didn't hesitate," he interrupted, leaning back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "You didn't care who I was. You didn't waste a second before barking orders like you owned the place." Her pulse quickened, but she forced herself to answer. I thought I was just trying to help, sir. The office was falling apart, and nobody was doing anything." Ryan let out a soft laugh. Quiet, but enough to make her tense even more. "Help," he repeated, almost amused. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp and unreadable. "Do you realize what that takes? Nerves, instinct, a willingness to step on toes if it gets the job done." Emily's hands trembled. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "Stop apologizing," Ryan cut in, his tone suddenly firm. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick black folder, sliding it across the desk toward her with a single, smooth motion. Emily stared at it, confused. Her fingers twitched, but she didn't dare move. Ryan's voice softened, but there was an edge to it. "From this moment forward," he said, "you are no longer just an entry-level assistant." Emily blinked. What?" "You heard me." His gaze didn't waver. "You're my personal assistant now." The words hit her like a jolt of electricity. For a second, she didn't breathe. "Wait, you're not firing me?" Ryan's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Fire you? After what I saw this morning? No, Miss Parker, I don't waste talent." She looked down at the folder, slowly reaching out to touch it, her fingers brushing over the crisp edges. Her voice trembled. "You want me to work for you? Directly? Yes, Ryan said simply, his tone leaving no room for argument. I want you at my side, keeping me in line, making sure nothing like this morning ever happens again. But make no mistake, he leaned in slightly, his eyes narrowing. I expect results. Don't make me regret this. Emily's mind spun. This can't be real. Just minutes ago, she had been convinced her career was over. Now, this? She felt a rush of adrenaline, her fear melting into something else entirely. Excitement, challenge, a spark of defiance. She straightened her posture, meeting his gaze. I won't let you down, she said, her voice steadier now. Ryan's smile widened just enough to make her heart skip. Good. Because, Miss Parker, this isn't a game. You step into my world, you keep up, or you're out. Emily tightened her grip on the folder, feeling the weight of it, and the weight of what he'd just handed her. Her stomach flipped, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something sharper, brighter. She nodded firmly. I'm ready. Ryan leaned back, eyes still locked on her. We'll see, he said quietly. But there was a spark of approval in his tone. As Emily stepped out of his office, her pulse still racing, the whispers in the hallway started immediately. Heads turned, eyes followed her, curious, shocked. She didn't care. Her lips curved into the smallest smile as she clutched the folder against her chest. She came in expecting to be fired, and walked out with a seat at the CEO's side. The fear was gone. Now it was adrenaline. The game had changed, and Emily Parker was ready to play. 3 hours after leaving Ryan's office, Emily was back at her desk, the black folder open like a ticking time bomb. Inside were event briefs, guest lists filled with high-profile names, and one handwritten note from Ryan. Host a flawless networking dinner. 72 hours, no excuses. Her breath caught. 72 hours? For something this huge? But she didn't waste another second. She pushed her chair back and grabbed her phone. Hi, this is Emily Parker from Westwood Solutions. I need availability for your ballroom this Friday. Yes, 3 days from now. She didn't even let the manager finish before moving on. Can you handle 120 guests? I need menu options by tonight. Her hands flew across the keyboard, firing off emails while she dialed another number with her other hand. Sweat beaded at her temples, but she didn't slow down. Within hours, she was storming down the hallway, phone pressed tight to her ear. No, that price is ridiculous. Drop it by 20% or I'm calling your competitor. You've got 10 minutes. She hung up, spun around, and shouted to the logistics team, I need the guest badges printed now. The office air crackled with urgency. Emily sprinted to the elevator, riding down to meet a florist she'd yanked in on short notice. I don't care if you have to work through the night, she told him, eyes fierce. I need those centerpieces delivered by Friday afternoon. Done deal? He nodded quickly, intimidated by her energy. By late afternoon, Emily's phone buzzed with bad news. A catering company she'd locked in just canceled. Her heart stopped for half a second, then adrenaline took over. She pounded her fist on the desk. No way. Not on my watch. She jumped back on the phone. I need a replacement chef today. Don't tell me it's impossible. Nothing's impossible. Minutes later, she was storming through another hallway, calling over her shoulder, Clear my schedule. I'm fixing this now. She burst into the break room, dialing furiously while pacing. Listen to me. I don't care if you're booked. Triple the rate. I'll send a car. Just say yes. Her voice cracked slightly with the pressure, but she didn't stop. Her team watched from the sidelines, stunned by how relentless she was. Hours blurred into night. Papers scattered across her desk. Sticky notes covered her monitor, and empty coffee cups lined up like trophies. Yet Emily kept going, eyes sharp, determination burning through the exhaustion. At 11:30 p.m., the office was nearly deserted. Only the faint hum of machines kept her company as she scrolled through last-minute contracts. Her eyelids felt heavy, but her hands didn't stop moving. A shadow fell across her desk. She looked up, startled. Ryan Carter stood there, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a steaming paper cup. He set it gently beside her laptop. Still here, he said quietly, his voice breaking through the silence. Emily blinked, unsure how to respond. He studied her for a moment, then added, You still haven't quit. Good. Something in her chest tightened. Pride, fear, maybe both. She looked at him, eyes tired but fierce. "You told me no excuses," she said, voice hoarse but steady. Ryan's lips curved into the faintest smile. "And you listened." For a second, the pressure eased. The room felt warmer. The challenge felt worth it. Emily wrapped her hands around the cup, feeling the heat seep into her cold fingers. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. "I'll see what you've built in 3 days, Miss Parker. Don't disappoint me." When he was gone, Emily stared at the folder again, the weight of the task pressing on her shoulders. But now, something else rose up stronger than the fear. Resolve. She took a deep breath, grabbed her phone, and dove right back in. The ballroom shimmered with crystal lights and low jazz music. For the first time in 3 days, Emily Parker allowed herself a tiny breath of relief. Guests in tailored suits and evening gowns mingled over cocktails. Every table gleamed with fresh flowers and gold-rimmed plates. The live band played smooth melodies, and the room buzzed with conversations that could turn into million-dollar deals. "It's working," she thought, watching the crowd from the edge of the room. "I actually pulled this off." But just as she allowed that fleeting smile, a panicked waiter bolted through the double doors from the kitchen. His face was pale, his voice a whisper that somehow cut through the music. "Miss Parker, we have a problem. A big one." Emily's stomach dropped. She grabbed her earpiece. "Speak." "The main dish. The oven failed. Half the entrees are burned, the rest raw. We can't serve it." Her chest tightened. The band kept playing. The guests kept laughing. But inside her head, alarms were blaring. Not now. Not tonight. She spun on her heel and stormed through the swinging doors into the chaos of the kitchen. Smoke hung in the air, chefs were shouting, and trays of ruined food were scattered across the counters. A junior cook stammered, We don't have time to start over." "Stop!" Emily barked, slamming her hand on the prep table. The room went silent. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. "Listen to me. We don't need to start over. We pivot." She scanned the supplies like a soldier on a battlefield. A rack of seared salmon, untouched. A pile of fresh vegetables. Her mind spun. "We're switching the main course. Salmon with a citrus glaze. Now." The head chef hesitated. "But the menu—" Emily cut him off, eyes blazing. "I don't care about the menu. I care about those guests out there. Move!" Everyone sprang into action. She grabbed a tray herself, slicing lemons, tossing instructions like a commander in war. "You. Plate the sides. You. Start the glaze. I want those plates out in 10 minutes." A deep voice came from behind her. Calm, curious. "Miss Parker, what exactly are you doing?" Emily spun around to see Ryan Carter standing in the doorway, hands in his pockets, that cool, infuriating half-smile on his face. His tuxedo looked untouched by the chaos, his eyes fixed on her like she was the only person in the room. She didn't miss a beat. "What does it look like I'm doing?" she shot back, grabbing a ladle and pointing it at him. "Just stand there and watch me save your event." Ryan's smile deepened, but he didn't move. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, observing her like she was pulling off a magic trick. Emily pushed through the tension, adrenaline surging. She darted from station to station, tasting, adjusting, shouting orders. "No delays. Keep the plates hot. Go, go, go." Within minutes, the kitchen transformed from disaster to high-speed assembly line. Plates stacked with glistening salmon rolled out on silver trays, waiters moving with purpose back into the glowing ballroom. Emily wiped her hands on her apron and followed the first tray out, holding her breath as servers placed the new dish before the guests. A beat of silence. Then forks clinked, eyes widened, and someone exclaimed, "This is incredible." Applause broke out at one table, then another. A ripple of approval spread through the room. Emily's shoulders sagged with relief as she stood near the doorway, watching the crowd dive into the impromptu dish. Ryan stepped up beside her, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You just changed the main course in the middle of a high-profile dinner, and they loved it." Emily turned to him, heart still racing, cheeks flushed with adrenaline. "I told you I'd save it," she whispered, unable to hide the fire in her eyes. Ryan studied her for a long moment, then gave a slow, approving nod. "Remind me never to underestimate you again." In that instant, the exhaustion, the panic, the long nights, they all felt worth it. The crowd's applause swelled again, and Emily felt something she hadn't felt since this insane journey began. Pride. The guests kept clapping, the kitchen calmed, and Ryan's eyes stayed on her, Emily Parker, the woman who turned disaster into triumph. The ballroom glowed under chandeliers as the last plates were cleared. Conversations were lively, investors laughing over wine, and the jazz band shifted to a soft, elegant tune. Emily stood near the back wall, finally letting herself breathe. Her shoulders ached, her feet throbbed in her heels. But seeing the satisfied smiles across the room filled her with a quiet pride. "We did it. I actually pulled it off." Then a familiar deep voice cut through the hum of chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ryan Carter said, stepping confidently to the center of the room, glass of champagne in hand. The band lowered their volume. Conversations paused. All eyes turned toward him. Ryan's gaze swept the room, but it stopped on Emily. He raised his glass. "Tonight's success, this flawless evening, wasn't because of me. It wasn't because of any one of you in this room." His voice carried with a calm authority that silenced every whisper. It was because of one person who refused to quit, even when everything was falling apart. Emily froze. Her heart skipped. Ryan turned fully toward her, his words deliberate, steady. "Emily Parker." The room erupted in applause. Dozens of powerful executives clapped, some even whistled. Emily's breath caught in her throat, her cheeks burning as every head turned to look at her. She lifted a hand in a shy wave, trying to hide the shock in her eyes. Her chest tightened with an emotion she hadn't expected. Gratitude mixed with something warmer, something she couldn't quite name. Ryan's lips curved into a small smile as he lowered his glass. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met across the crowded room, and Emily felt it. A spark, quick and undeniable. After the speeches and goodbyes, the crowd thinned out. Staff began clearing tables, and the ballroom lights dimmed to a softer glow. Emily slipped out onto the balcony, the night air cool against her flushed skin. The city stretched before her, endless lights blinking in the darkness. She wrapped her arms around herself, finally allowing the adrenaline to fade. The door opened behind her. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Ryan stepped onto the balcony, his footsteps quiet on the stone floor. He carried his jacket over one arm, the other hand tucked into his pocket. For a moment, he said nothing. He just stood there, looking out at the city with her. "You handled yourself well in there," he said finally, his voice softer now, stripped of the sharp edges she'd heard in meetings. Emily let out a breathy laugh. "I almost burned the entire dinner." "Well, might not be the word." Ryan moved closer, the faint scent of his cologne mingling with the cool breeze. "You didn't burn it. You saved it. You saved all of us." Emily turned to him, surprised by the gentleness in his tone. He held her gaze for a long second before draping his jacket over her shoulders. The fabric was still warm, smelling faintly of him. She blinked, caught off guard. "You didn't have to?" "Yes," he interrupted softly. "I did." His voice lowered even more, almost intimate. "You didn't just do your job tonight, Emily. You did something I didn't think anyone could do. You surprised me." Emily swallowed hard, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. She tightened the jacket around herself, words failing her for once. Ryan looked out over the city again, his profile calm under the glow of the balcony lights. Then he glanced back at her, with that enigmatic smile that had both infuriated and intrigued her since day one. "You've got more fight in you than anyone I've ever met," he said quietly, "and I can't wait to see what you do next." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the city faded, replaced by a stillness that felt oddly warm, almost electric. Emily felt her chest tighten, not from panic this time, but from something else, something she didn't dare name yet. She turned her eyes back to the skyline, but the smallest smile touched her lips. She could still feel his jacket on her shoulders, still feel his words echoing in her mind. The next morning, Emily barely had time to settle at her desk before Ryan's assistant appeared. Boardroom, now. Mr. Carter wants you in the meeting. Emily grabbed her notebook and followed, her pulse picking up. Inside, the energy was tense. At the head of the table sat David King, one of the most notorious negotiators in the industry. His reputation preceded him. Razor-sharp, relentless, a man who chewed up contracts and spat out profit only for himself. Ryan sat at the opposite end, cool and unreadable, as always. Emily slipped into a seat beside him, scanning the stack of papers in front of her. The meeting started. David spoke with a smooth confidence, sliding new contract terms across the table. "We'll need exclusive rights to distribution," he said, voice calm but edged with challenge. "And a reduced penalty clause, should things go south." Emily's stomach tightened as she read the line. That clause would leave Westwood vulnerable, losing millions if David's side backed out. Ryan stayed silent for a beat, letting David talk. Around the table, some of the directors exchanged worried glances but said nothing. Emily's hands tightened on her pen. She could feel her heart thudding in her ears. "Say something," her instinct screamed. Before she could second-guess herself, she leaned forward. "Mr. King," she said, voice firm but respectful. "With all due respect, that clause undermines the stability of this agreement. It's not acceptable." The room froze. David's eyes snapped to her, a flicker of surprise breaking through his confident facade. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "And you are?" "Emily Parker," she replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Personal assistant to Mr. Carter, and someone who reads every word of these contracts." A faint murmur ran through the room. David leaned back in his chair, studying her like a chess piece that just made an unexpected move. "You're bold," he said. Emily didn't blink. "I'm thorough. That clause puts our company at unnecessary risk. If that's a deal-breaker, then perhaps we should rethink this partnership." The air thickened with tension. One of the directors shifted nervously. But Emily didn't back down. She held David's gaze, letting silence do the work. Finally, David chuckled under his breath. "Interesting," he said, flipping through the pages again. "Very well. We'll strike the clause and adjust accordingly." A collective breath seemed to release from the room. Ryan hadn't moved, but Emily felt his eyes on her. When she dared to glance at him, she caught it, just for a second. His eyes softened, bright with something rare. Pride. The meeting carried on with renewed focus. Emily stayed alert, jotting notes, interjecting twice more to clarify terms that might have slipped by unnoticed. By the end, David extended a hand across the table. "Impressive," he said. "Westwood's lucky to have you." Emily shook his hand, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "We value our partners, but we value fairness more." David smirked, clearly amused, and left with his team. The room gradually emptied, leaving Emily and Ryan behind. Ryan stood, gathering his papers, then turned to her, his voice low. "You just saved us a fortune." Emily blinked, still riding the high of the confrontation. I just said what I thought was right." Ryan stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. "And that's exactly why I need you in these meetings." Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest, stronger than any exhaustion from the sleepless nights. She'd walked into that boardroom as an assistant. She walked out feeling like something more, someone who belonged in the fight. It was nearly midnight when Emily's phone buzzed. Just one message from Ryan. "Meet me on the rooftop." No explanation, no emoji, just that. Her heart skipped. She was still in the office, double-checking numbers from the King deal, but something in his tone felt different tonight. She grabbed her coat and headed for the stairs, her heels echoing in the quiet hallway. When the elevator dinged open at the top floor, a rush of wind met her, cool, clean, laced with the scent of night air. The rooftop was bathed in the glow of the city, skyscrapers blinking like stars, the hum of New York stretching endlessly below. And there he stood, Ryan Carter, in his usual tailored suit. But tonight, he looked nervous. Emily approached slowly, her voice light. "You dragged me up here to show me the weather?" Ryan turned, and that's when she saw it, a small velvet box in his hand. "Emily," he said, stepping closer, his voice steady but low. You walked into my life with a broken umbrella and enough fire to boss me around like I was the IT guy." She laughed, just a breath, but froze when he dropped to one knee. "I built this company with logic, strategy, rules, but since the day you came in, everything's been different. You challenge me, you push me, you make this place feel like more than business." He opened the box. A ring shimmered under the rooftop lights. "I don't care if people think this is crazy. I don't care if it breaks every HR policy in the book." A pause. Then, "Emily Parker, will you marry me?" For a split second, the world stilled. No deadlines, no deals, just wind, lights, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Emily stared at him. "You're insane," she whispered, eyes filling. "This is insane." He stayed there, smiling, waiting. And then she laughed through the tears. "But yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Ryan stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, hands slightly trembling now. He cupped her face, brushing her tears away, and kissed her, deeply, fiercely, under the glow of the city that once swallowed them in silence. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Not power, not position, not the fact that this was the CEO and his assistant. All that remained was love, raw, real, and unexpected. The morning sun stretched across the open meadow, golden light dancing off rows of white chairs and delicate flowers swaying in the breeze. The scene looked like something out of a movie, simple, timeless, breathtaking. But for Ryan Carter, none of it compared to the woman walking toward him in a white dress, Emily Parker. Her smile stole the air from his lungs. The same woman who once dragged him to a desk, thinking he was the IT guy, was now walking down the aisle to become his wife. The crowd rose, soft music played, but all Ryan could hear was the thunder of his heart. Emily stepped beside him, cheeks flushed, eyes shimmering with joy. The pastor began speaking, but their world had shrunk to a bubble, just the two of them and everything they had conquered. When it came time for vows, Ryan didn't read from a card. He looked into her eyes and whispered, "This time, I'm the one taking orders for life." Laughter rippled through the guests. Emily grinned through tears, squeezing his hands. "And I won't go easy on you." They both chuckled, but beneath the humor was something deeper, an unspoken understanding of how far they had come. From chaos in the server room to war rooms of corporate strategy, from arguments to quiet moments under the stars. They had battled egos, deadlines, disasters, and now they stood together, choosing forever. The pastor's voice broke through. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Ryan didn't. He pulled Emily close and kissed her, like they were still on that rooftop, just wind, light, and love. The guests erupted into cheers. Flower petals flew. The camera flashed, but Emily and Ryan barely noticed. They were too lost in each other. Later, as they danced beneath fairy lights and oak trees, Emily leaned into his chest. "So, still think hiring me was a mistake?" Ryan smirked. "Hiring you was chaos. Loving you was destiny." The music swelled. Friends clinked glasses. Laughter echoed through the fields. And as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting everything in a warm, honeyed glow, the story of Emily and Ryan, once strangers, now partners in both business and life, closed its final chapter. Sometimes, the most life-changing moments come from mistakes. Emily thought she was ordering around a tech support guy, only to find out he was the CEO. But instead of humiliation, that mistake became her breakthrough. Why? Because she showed initiative, courage, and resilience when it mattered most. This story reminds us, don't let fear or social hierarchy silence your voice. Your ideas, your effort, and your heart matter, no matter where you come from or what title you hold. In a world obsessed with appearances, what truly stands out is authenticity and grit. Emily didn't just rise because she was lucky. She rose because she worked, adapted, and stayed true to herself, even when the pressure was crushing. To anyone out there hustling, feeling invisible, or doubting your worth, your moment could be just one brave decision away. If this story touched you, Hit that subscribe button to follow more inspiring tales like this. Drop a comment below. What would you do in Emily's shoes? And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a little hope today.